Right, so welcome back to another video on this channel. In today's video I'm going to be doing yet another tier list video. It's been quite a while since I've done one of these, and in today's tier list I'm going to be ranking the Premier League owners from best to worst. And just a quick disclaimer before we get into this video, this is obviously purely my opinion, and I haven't really done my full research on all of these owners. I'm pretty much going off like what I've seen and heard about them so far, and I'm pretty much ranking them based on like their overall investment, maybe treatment of managers, and pretty much their overall running in the club and how positive or negative an effect they've had on their club in their tenure. So yeah, let's get into it. And as you can see on your screen, here are the tiers we have gone for. So the top one is wouldn't want anyone else, then we have good, okay, not great, and then the bottom one is killing the club. Starting off with Arsenal. Now they are quite an interesting one because over the years they've had plenty of protests about their owner, of course, Stan Kroenke. Now I've put Arsenal in not great because Stan Kroenke, although he has invested quite a bit of money in the last like 1 or 2 years, I don't think he invests quite enough for the size of club that Arsenal are. And over the years Arsenal fans have been very vocal about Stan Kroenke's overall running of the club, and especially since they moved to the Emirates Stadium they've fallen down a bit, like from title contenders really to like top 4 contenders really, and I think that Arsenal's running of the club by Stan Kroenke is not great, hence why I put them in that category. Second up now we have Aston Villa, and going from not great to wouldn't want anyone else, I've put Aston Villa's owner in that bracket. Aston Villa, of course, owned by Nassef Sawiris. Now his investment in the last few years at the club has been very, very good. I mean, for promotion last season they spent about over £100 million in the transfer window, and they've kind of continued that spending into this summer as well with quality players like Ollie Watkins, Emiliano Martinez, Bertrand Traore and Matty Cash as well, and they're only going to invest more as well. They're probably going to invest in another like 1 or 2 players at least. And yeah, overall I think Aston Villa are a well-run club, especially over the last few years. They've gotten back into the Premier League, and as you saw in my Premier League predictions, if you watch that, I think they will finish around mid-table in the Premier League and will cement themselves once again as a Premier League club. Next up we have Brighton, owned by Tony Bloom. Now I've put them in the good category because Tony Bloom has done pretty much wonders at Brighton in his tenure, because of course when he took over they were like in the lower tiers of English football, and he's got them up into the Premier League, and not only that, but he cemented them as a Premier League level club. And yeah, his investment over the years has been very good. His appointment to Graham Potter was very good as well, and overall building the team around what Graham Potter wants in his style of play. And I think Brighton in these next few years under Graham Potter and the ownership of Tony Bloom will be one of those teams that, you know, fluctuate from mid-table, maybe over succeed one season. And yeah, overall I think Tony Bloom's running of the club is good at this stage, and that's why I put them in the second to top category. And now we have the first owner I've put in the killing the club category, and that is Mike Garlick of Burnley. Now to be fair, Burnley have been quite successful, if not very successful, over the last 5 years or so, because of course Burnley have become a cemented Premier League side in the last few years, which we never would have expected from him in the last half decade. But if I'm being honest, I don't really think that is down to Mike Garlick's running of the club. I mean, he's like a solid enough Premier League owner from what I've seen, but I think the most part of what Burnley's success has been in the last few years has been down to the management of Sean Dyche, who in my opinion doesn't really get the credit he deserves because he's one of the top managers in the Premier League. I know the football isn't, you know, as appeasing as people would like. The things he's done at Burnley in the last few years have been nothing short of spectacular. I mean, this summer is a perfect example of the investment that Mike Garlick gives to Burnley now. I mean, their only signing has been Dale Stephens, and they spent like pretty much pennies on him, if I'm honest. And I think when Sean Dyche eventually does leave Burnley, I think they will plummet down the divisions once again, probably into like mid-table championship standard, and that's why I've got Mike Garlick in the bottom tier. Maybe a bit harsh to some people, but that's where I've put him. Next up, the fifth one in this video, we have of course my owner, my club, Roman Abramovich of Chelsea. Now of course there's no other place I can put him other than the top category, because what Roman Abramovich has done and achieved in his Chelsea tenure is just nothing short of absolutely spectacular. He's taken us from pretty much the depth of bankruptcy when he took over, and yeah, no, I don't buy into this myth of course that we were a small club when he took over, because he took us over because we qualified for the Champions League. But overall you can't take away from the fact that Roman Abramovich has built us into a club that we never expected we would be when he took over. I mean, the money he's invested into the club is just absolutely phenomenal. I know his treatment of managers has caused a bit of a debate in recent years, but I think now he's stuck with Frank Lampard. He'll give him the time and the funds to build a team around what he wants. And I think Roman Abramovich definitely deserves to be in the top tier in this video for what he's done for Chelsea Football Club. Next up we have Crystal Palace and their owner Steve Parish. Now I've put them dead in the middle in the OK section, pretty much because I don't really know much about Crystal Palace's ownership. I mean, Steve Parish has done very well to get Crystal Palace into the position they were in from promotion to, you know, like Premier League solidarity in mid-table. They have invested a bit over the years, but like not that much. I think this summer they've actually done quite well, especially if they get the money they wanted for Wilfred Zaha, which would probably be around like 50-60 million pounds. And yeah, I think Crystal Palace are one of those clubs that have a stable ownership, like not too good, not too bad, so I think that Steve Parish deserves to be in the middle section in this video. Next up we have Everton and Farhad Mashiri. Now I've put them in the good section. Now it kind of fluctuates over like what tier they'd be in, because over the years Everton have really struggled with the money they've spent, but I think mainly their struggles in the last few years has been down to, you know, the recruitment system. I think it hasn't been good enough, especially with the managers they've had, like the likes of Ronald Koeman and Marco Silva, who've inevitably failed in their Everton careers. Now that I think they have Carlo Ancelotti, I think Mashiri's investment will come good, because Ancelotti, as I said in multiple videos, is a world-class manager who will get the best out of any players he does sign. And yeah, I think overall his investment and overall running of the club is very good, and hence why I put him in the good section in this video. Next one we have Fulham. Now their owner is of course Shahid Khan, and I've put them slap bang bang in the middle, like Crystal Palace, in the good section. Probably a bit harsh because over the years they have quite invested a lot of money. I mean, we all remember that 18-19 season when they came up and invested over £100 million on players. And even though it was invested pretty horribly, I think that overall his running of the club is pretty good because they've managed to bounce back straight away under the management of Scott Parker. And this summer he has seemed to have learned his lesson in the heavy investment category because of course he hasn't spent half as much money as he did last time he was in the Premier League with Fulham. And yeah, overall I think he's another one that's running of the club isn't particularly bad, so I put him in the okay section in this video. Next up we have another newly promoted club in the Premier League, Leeds United, under the ownership of Andrea Radrizzani. Now we all know the state of Leeds United's ownership under the previous management of Massimo Cellino, and I think under Radrizzani they've really made a comeback into the Premier League, of course, and his run in the club seems very, very good, hence why I put him in the good section of this video. I think his investment is quite good as well. I mean, Leeds were always going to invest heavily if they came back into the Premier League under Radrizzani's ownership, and yeah, he's really turned the circus show from Cellino into somewhat of a stable management club, and I think that that's why I put him in the good section of this video. I think the appointment of Marcelo Bielsa especially was an absolute masterstroke because of course he's done wonders with them, a world-class manager in my opinion. And yeah, overall I think Leeds are a fairly well-run club at this moment in time, and that's why I put him in the second to top category. Next up we have Leicester. Now sorry if I butcher this pronunciation, but it's Ayawat Shrivadanaprabha. I think I got that pronunciation quite right, in fairness, if I'm defending myself, but obviously rest in peace to the former owner Vishai Srivadanaprabha, who did in fact die in a helicopter crash in late 2018. And it's good to see that his son has in fact taken over the reins at Leicester City Football Club, and he's doing just as good as a job as his father did for Leicester. Their investment is very good. They're a very run club in terms of, like, you know, selection of managers, and I think they've got some very, very good recruitment leaders because Leicester City's recruitment in the last few years has been nothing short of world class. They've been buying players and just literally improving them over the years, and hence why they're such a big club in the Premier League at the moment. And yeah, that's why I put them in the top category. It may be surprising to a few people because maybe they could have been a tier down, but I think that Leicester City's ownership is very, very good, and yeah, that's why I put them in that category. Next up we have the Premier League current champions Liverpool with the Fenway Sports Group. Now I've put them slap bang in the middle as usual in the okay section. Now I know a lot of people on Twitter have been giving Liverpool a bit of grief because of course they weren't really spending money, but then they go out and spend like 70-80 million pounds on Costas Tsimikas, Thiago Alcantara, and of course Diogo Jota. And yeah, I think Liverpool's running of the club over the years by the Fenway Sports Group has been very good. I mean, obviously they've won the Premier League. I think the fact that they hired Jurgen Klopp in, of course, 2015 has obviously paid dividends for them because they went on and won the Premier League and the Champions League. And yeah, overall their investment in the club, I mean, I know they've sold players before, they've bought players like in typical circumstances, but overall they've reinvested that money into the squad, and I think they're a decent enough run club, Liverpool, hence why I put them in the okay bracket in this video. Next up we have Manchester City, owned of course by Sheikh Mansour, and I think that there's no arguments here, they should be put in the top section because Manchester City have had the biggest makeover out of any team in the Premier League pretty much ever in the last 10 years or so. Sheikh Mansour has brought them from pretty much mid-table obscurity to Premier League champions and fighting for the Champions League every season. I mean, I know it's a bit dodgy like how they've done it, but of course you can't deny that Sheikh Mansour has given Manchester City pretty much everything they have at the moment with the investment and overall his caring of the club. And yeah, I'd say Manchester City are probably the best run club in the Premier League at this moment in time, especially at the top 6 clubs anyway. And yeah, I think it would be absolutely obscure to put them anywhere other than the top tier in this video. On the other hand, their Manchester neighbours, Manchester United, I've put their owners, the Glazers of course, in the not great section. Now I know a lot of people will say that's controversial because they probably should be in the bottom tier in this video, but the only reason I've put them so high and probably giving them over credit in my opinion is because they do invest quite a lot every summer. They invest between like 100 to 200 million pretty much every summer, if I'm honest. It's purely down to the recruitment system, once again, as I say for most teams in this video. I think the recruitment system, mainly in Ed Woodward as well, I think has been absolutely disastrous over the years, and I think that the Glazer family, although they're not like good owners by any stretch of imagination, I think they've put in a decent amount of investment over the years. Probably should invest a bit more given the size of Manchester United and what they want to be achieving in the Premier League and abroad as well, but yeah, that's why I put them in the not great section in this video. And from one bad ownership to another, Mike Ashley at Newcastle United, and obviously they have to be in the bottom tier because Mike Ashley, in my opinion, is probably the worst owner in the Premier League by an absolute country mile. And even though the bottom bracket is called, of course, killing the club, I mean, he's already killed Newcastle United really because they are the definition of a sleeping giant. Newcastle United are a massive club and they should be fighting for the top 4 every single season, and the fact that Mike Ashley has put the club in a status where they have to be, you know, survival is a good achievement for them every season is just really sad to see. And I know Newcastle United fans will probably have a bit of relief in the next year or two because I firmly believe that Newcastle will be taken over by a new owner in the next year or two probably. But yeah, Mike Ashley has pretty much rinsed money out of the club. I know they spent quite a bit in the last 2 transfer windows, but I think that's pretty much just to get Newcastle in the shop window so you can get a better deal out of him, and yeah, I think he definitely has to be in the bottom category, killing the club in this video. Next up we have Sheffield United, run by Abdullah bin Masad, and I put them slap bang in the middle of this tier list in the OK OK section, purely because I don't really know much about the ownership of Sheffield United. From what I've seen and heard of them so far, they're a pretty stably run club, and I think that their investment is okay to a certain extent for the size of a club that Sheffield United are. And the fact that they're in the Premier League and doing really well and playing some decent football under Chris Wilder, I think is a massive success for them overall. And yeah, overall I think that Sheffield United are quite a decent run club, and that's why I put them in the middle in this video in the OK section. And next up we have Southampton, run by Gao Ji Sheng. I think I pronounced that right. And like Sheffield United, I put them in the OK section purely because I don't really know much about their ownership. They seem to be decent in terms of like recruiting managers over the years, because Ralph Hasenhüttl firmly has been an absolutely unbelievable appointment from their point of view. And they do put some relatively good investment into the club. I mean, their signings over the years has been very, very good. I think the recruitment system is probably the main reason why. But I think Southampton are, once again, like Sheffield United and a few other clubs in this video, one of those clubs that, you can't really complain about the ownership, but they're not unbelievably run in terms of investment, but they're also not shocking, so that's why I put them in the OK section. And joining Sheffield United and Southampton in the OK section is Tottenham's ownership of Daniel Levy. Now, Daniel Levy is an owner that's got, let's be honest, his fair share of criticism in the last few years over his running of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And to be fair, I think he has his strengths and weaknesses, because over the years Tottenham really haven't had the investment that they probably would have wanted, especially getting to the Champions League final, and they barely spent any money the season that they did do. But especially in this transfer window, they spent quite a lot of money, and to be fair, showed quite a lot of ambition, and especially with the fact that Daniel Levy was the main man, of course, behind Tottenham moving to the new stadium, which is probably one of the best stadiums in the world of football at the moment. And yeah, if I'm being perfectly honest, Daniel Levy is probably not a bad owner whatsoever, but I don't think he's like in the elite category in terms of investment. And yeah, I think Daniel Levy is probably nothing more and nothing less than an okay owner of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, so yeah, that's why I put him in that category. Next up we have West Brom and the ownership of Lai Gu Kwan. I think I pronounced that right. I mean, there's a few in this video that are just hard to pronounce from my understanding. And yeah, for the fourth one in a row, I've put them in the OK section because, once again, I don't really know much about West Bromwich Albion's ownership. I think they're a pretty stable run club in the Premier League. Their investment hasn't been the best, but overall you can't really complain about it, because the size of West Brom, they really, you kind of expect them to invest as much as they have done. And yeah, I think they have a very good manager in Slavan Bilic, and they have some very good players. The recruitment system over the years has been quite good for West Brom as well, hence why they've managed to get themselves back into the Premier League so quickly whenever they go down. And yeah, I think nothing more and nothing less for Lai Gu Kwan at West Brom, and that's why I put them in the OK section. And now the penultimate owners in this video, of course, the infamous David Gold and David Sullivan. Now, I have controversially probably put them in the not great section. I know a lot of people would have them lower than that, and like the Glazers, the only reason why I haven't put them in the lowest section, because I think over the years their investment actually hasn't been too bad. It's just the money that they've spent has been flaunted on players that haven't really been good enough in hindsight for the club. Yeah, if I'm being honest, Gold and Sullivan really aren't the best owners in the Premier League by a long stretch, and that's why I put them in the not great section. And I think there is rumours that they're going to sell the club in the next few years, which would be massive for West Ham. And yeah, I know there's been plenty of protests over the years from West Ham fans, change of ownership, because Gold and Sullivan really haven't been great at running the club in the last few years. And yeah, that's probably why I've put them in the not great section in this video. And the final ownership in this video is Wolves and the backing of the Fosun International Group, and I've put them right in the top category in wouldn't want anyone else, because let's be honest, Wolves are a magnificently run club at this moment in time. Under the ownership that they currently have, they've made it from League One all the way to Champions League qualification hunting. And yeah, it's been a real rags to riches story at Wolverhampton Wanderers, because the players that they're attracting now, that there's Raul Jimenez, Ruben Neves, João Moutinho, because the players they've attracted in the last few years as well has been absolutely magnificent. I know they get memed a lot for being like, Portugal FC, but yeah, 5 years ago, who really would have predicted that Wolves would not only be a stable Premier League club, but also fighting for Champions League qualification pretty much every season now. And yeah, overall, as I said, I think Wolves are a very, very run club, and that's why I put them in the top tier in this video. And yeah, that will put an end to this video now. And yeah, as you can see on your screen now, this is the final tier list that I have chosen to go for. If you agree or disagree with any of the decisions I've gone for in this video, make sure to let me know down in the comment section below. And yeah, also make sure to leave a like on the video if you did enjoy. It'd be very much appreciated. Also make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're looking to hit 600 subscribers as soon as we possibly can. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. See ya.